got a close one, Toby.
Y'all want to go over there and get one made in front of them things over there?
Sure, we'll find a way to crawl on their lap. Sure.
I want you to get on the lap.
Let's try. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good day, and welcome aboard the Desert Princess, operated by Lake Mead Cruises, an authorized concessionaire of the National Park Service. The Desert Princess is the largest vessel currently cruising on Lake Mead. On our trip today, we'll travel across a portion of the Boulder Basin of Lake Mead to Black Canyon and the Hoover Dam. As we get underway on our excursion, there are a few nautical terms we'd like you to know, and some rules of shipboard behavior we'd like you to follow. are individual and suitable for both men and women. A specially equipped wheelchair-accessible head is located on the starboard side, and 3 traditionally equipped heads are on the port side. Above the main deck is the second, or Texas deck. Here you'll find our bar and snack bar, lounge area with additional seating and 2 more heads. The second deck also features an outside walkway with standing room at the bow so you can see where we're going, and at the stern so you can see where we've been. The open area at the stern is also a great place to watch the paddle wheel at work. The top deck, which is also called the Hurricane or Promenade deck, has additional seating and an unobstructed view of the dramatic desert surroundings. I'd like to ask you to please use the trash cans and ashtrays provided, and remind you that there is no smoking allowed inside our enclosed deck areas. Please don't throw any trash or cigarette butts over the side. Remember, here on the lake, we're guests of Mother Nature. Ashore, when you're in a backcountry area, you should leave nothing behind but your footprints. Today, on this beautiful lake, let's leave nothing behind but our wake. Now, a few words about shipboard safety, and I'd like you boys and girls and your parents to listen very closely. First, there is no running allowed aboard the Desert Princess. Running on board a ship is very dangerous because of wet spots on the metal decks and stairs. These wet spots can be very slippery, and if you're running and hit one of them, you could slip and hurt yourself or fall over the side, and that water is very deep. So boys and girls, please don't run, and always use the handrails when climbing up or down the stairs. And please don't play in the stairwells. Other passengers and the crew are using them to get from deck to deck, and we don't want you to have bumps and bruises because you slipped while playing on the stairs. Now I would like the attention of all passengers. Life jackets are stored in several locations on the Desert Princess. On the main deck, they are under the stairwell near the bow. On the second deck, they are stored next to the stairwell near the bow. On the third deck, life jackets are stored under the wheelhouse. All of the can be seen off the port bow is topped by many layers of these lava flows, which have solidified into basalt. The volcanic action continued, accompanied by huge blocks of earth slipping past each other. This activity, which began about 70 million years ago, created the mountains and valleys of the Lake Mead landscape we know today. What a process that must have been. Great sections of the Earth's crust pushing against each other, sometimes rising and creating entire mountain ranges, and sometimes lowering, creating the valleys. All of these forces continued to a time about 10 million years ago, when the troughs of the valleys were formed and determined the course of what would become the Colorado River. But where did the river come from? There are several theories, but the most widely accepted is that 10 million years ago, a river known as the Little Colorado flowed from the Rocky Mountains to a lake long since vanished in central Arizona. The western boundary of this lake was defined by a highland or plateau. Over time, the stream that drained this highland gradually cut a course to the east. The flow of the Little Colorado was diverted into this newly created path, becoming the Colorado River. The river continued to flow through this course as the highland continued to rise on either side of it. The Grand Canyon is the result of the Colorado River cutting through this rising plateau. While the Colorado was carving out the Grand Canyon, it was also at work carving Boulder Canyon, Black Canyon, and the many other canyons around the Lake Mead area and beyond. And although the process is so slow as to not be obvious to humans, it continues today as the river wears away canyon walls and wind and rain wear away the higher areas. There was one more piece of the geologic puzzle that fell into place only a few million years ago. The ice ages, with their huge glaciers that cooled the climate of the Earth, caused the climate here to be cooler and wetter than it is today, and created many lakes and streams that are now dry basins. So although the glaciers never came this far south, the climatic changes they caused changed the landscape. The last cool period, a mere 10 or 15,000 years ago, caused yet another change. A change whose consequences affected the Lake Mead area more radically than any other. This change was the introduction of a new element, a new factor: humans. So there you have it, hundreds of millions of years, volcanoes, faulting, sand dunes and deserts, great seas and rivers, glaciers and ice ages, all to form the area we see today. I'll be back in a few minutes with more modern history of humans at Lake Mead. Of nature that created this landscape and the Colorado River. Now the story shifts its focus and becomes one that is about humans and their efforts to coexist with and ultimately harness the wealth of natural resources available here. This portion of the story begins at the end of the last ice age, when this area, cooler and wetter than today, supported a variety of animal life. Remains of mammoths, native horses and camels, deer, bighorn sheep, mountain goats, and giant sloths have been found, along with evidence that bands of ancient hunters were here also, using stone-tipped spears to breed down these animals. But that way of life disappeared as the glaciers in the north receded and the ice age ended. As conditions became desert-like, the lifestyle of the people who lived here adjusted also. This adjustment, which took many generations, saw the large game animals replaced as food sources by small desert animals and even lizards. Ancient people supplemented their diet of meat by harvesting the local plants like cactus, yucca, and mesquite. This lifestyle became known as the desert culture. Around 2,000 years ago, a group of people known as the Anasazi spread to the Lake Mead area from the east and established themselves. A highly structured farming society that also increased the size of the Lake Mead reservoir by 1/3 without additional cost. That extra 1/3 became the Boulder Basin of Lake Mead, where we are cruising today. With the location for the dam site determined, two tasks faced the federal government. One, of course, was the engineering and construction of the dam itself. The other, just as important, was determining where the captured water would go. 6 different states and Mexico had to agree, and it took several years before the Colorado River Compact in 1922 settled the issue. The compact paved the way for the Boulder Canyon Project Act of 1928, which provided the funding for the dam in Black Canyon. The act allocated $175 million for construction and stipulated that the money be paid back plus 3% interest within 50 years to generate revenue. By 1976, the dam had grossed $100 million to the government. In 1986, final payment was made, and believe it or not, a federal project had completely paid for itself. In the 20s, as plans for the dam in Black Canyon progressed, the project was widely known as Boulder Dam because of the Boulder Canyon Project Act. The name stuck, even though Congress officially named it Hoover Dam in 1930. The dam was named for Herbert Hoover because he was responsible for overseeing the complex water rights negotiations when he was Secretary of Commerce in the 1920s. Boulder Dam continued to be the most used name, however, and in 1947, President Truman asked Congress to decide just what the legal name was. It was, and still is, Hoover Dam, although even today both Boulder and Hoover are used. If you look to the starboard side, off the bow, you'll see the Black Mountains. Partway up the side is what looks like a roadway. This is the bed of the railroad built to carry loaded or lowered by a gigantic tramway to the canyon floor below for unloading. The last train load was in 1961 when the final generator was placed in the powerhouse of the dam. Today, the railroad beds and tunnels have been developed into a trail for visitors by the National Park Service. As we approach the Black Canyon entrance itself, keep a sharp eye on the hills off the starboard side. If you're lucky, you might spot one of the native desert bighorn sheep, one of the largest herd of desert big.
La tipa si chiama San Bianco, ce l'ho fatto. Vabbè, quello del cosa, ora lì hanno fatto loro questa storia per il livello dell'acqua. Ora te devo dire una cosa, Devo dire una cosa.